Well, hey there. Happy Thursday. Welcome to another episode of So What, the Marketing Analytics and Insights live show. I always want to say another, which is, still proper English, but not very understandable. Today I'm joined by Chris and Ted Lasso. We don't know what happened to John. He might be off fighting crime somewhere, like the superhero that he is.
That's
Um,
better than Flanders. I was worried I'd get Ned Flanders.
I only knew it was Ted Lasso because I figured that was like the most recent pop culture thing with a guy with a mustache.
Recent mustache meme.
Um, so today we're
There we
going. Oh my God, John, where'd you
go.
come
I know.
from?
Dun, dun, dun. Surprise reveal. Here we go.
We're off to a good start. So today we're going a little more conceptual than we are tactical, but the idea is that you can still start to think about how applying this to your organization. So today we're talking about change management and digital transformation. What's the difference between them? How these two frameworks work together and how you can apply these frameworks to your marketing. So before we jump into sort of like what they are and how to use them, Chris, John, when I say digital transformation, like what comes to mind for you? And please keep it clean. This is a family show. But like,
Expensive consulting fees.
what is your definition of digital transformation?
That's right. No job too big, no fee too big. It's a classic Ghostbusters. This is right on the mark for 31st. Yeah, it is funny. It's like fake news. It's one of those phrases that everybody throws around all the time, but that nobody ever really sat down to come up with a definition of the thing. So, most people don't know what they're talking about, or they're just kind of peddling smoke and mirrors. That's my initial opinion.
What about you, Chris?
To me, digital transformation is the uh, adaptation of the technology, the people, and the processes in an organization to be digital focused or digital first. So you take, for example, a pizza company. It just makes pizza and stuff, and they have ads and flyers around town. And a digital transformation would be looking at things like their supply chain. Can that be made more automated, more digital, more real time? Can their advertising and marketing systems be adapted to be more digital, mobile first, for example? And even if you want to get like wacky crazy, at the highest levels of digital transformation, you start getting into things like digital twins, where you would have the people, processes, and technology of a real world thing replicated in a digital environment, so you could run simulations. So you have a pizza oven, and you have it's a digital twin, and you could, if the simulator was good enough, simulate, okay, what happens if we bake pizzas at 450 instead of 350? And do we get faster pizzas? Do we get better pizzas? Can we cut costs somewhere? So that's sort of that what that means is taking the existing business and finding ways to up level it so that it becomes a more digitized business.
And when I say change management, what does that mean aside from another expensive consulting trick?
First, Colin, change management is what divides like failed corporate projects from ones that actually work. So many projects are kind of like, here's the tools we're going to roll out over the next month, and it's just built around an RFP. But the reality of like, okay, this project is going to, this is how we're going to get the people to come along with this and how it's going to work. Yeah, change management is, to me, it's the most important part of most major corporate initiatives. Like without it, you risk, obvious failure.
Yeah, it feels like much more that it feels like a much more cup of soup kind of term, like change management. You're literally managing change, and you're trying to make change happen. Because, like John said, digital transformation could be anything. It's it really is a consulting buzzword. I know change management and knowledge management and all that stuff are too, but they're like '90s consulting words, so they're kind of like ingrained at this point. No one's surprised when you hear them. Just like if somebody brings up like '90s music, nobody's surprised to hear that like Green Day is mentioned in there. It's just part of the landscape now.
Fair enough. Well, in preparation for this episode, I definitely did a bit of research. And so, what is digital transformation? It's the adoption of digital technology by a company, and then some common reasons. And then what is change management? It's a collective term or a cup of soup, as you like to say, for all approaches to prepare, support, and help individuals and teams and organizations make organizational change. And so, stepping back, if you introduce these two terms to someone who wasn't familiar with them, they might say, well, aren't they just the same thing? And the answer is no. Digital transformation is a subset of change management. So in doing, in looking through, a bunch of digital transformation frameworks and approaches to digital transformation, a lot of what it kept coming back to is a culture shift. And that's the definition of change management, is that organizational behavior change. And so that to me says that digital transformation nestles in underneath the overall change management process. And the way that I've been trying to describe change management, because it is sort of a more conceptual, let's see if I can get this to work. There we go. Change management is sort of these 5 major pillars of purpose, people, process, platform, and performance. And so purpose being, why are you doing the thing? People being, who is doing the thing? Process being how? Platform being, what are the tools you're using? Performance being how you measure. And so really trying to break it down into that simple framework structure that you can apply to pretty much anything. So what I did was I started to really think about change management at the organizational level and where digital transformation fits in. And so what you have both been describing as digital transformation is really that adoption of new technology, or moving from offline marketing to online marketing, or from, humans to machines, or whatever that is. And that historically tends to only fall within the platform piece of it, but it's a missed opportunity to have that full range of change management. And so full disclosure, I'm not a, big visual person. Like, I'm a visual learner, but I'm not great at creating those visuals. And so what I had in my head was sort of that swirling vortex of a process within a process within a process within a process. But I had a really hard time making that appear in Microsoft PowerPoint. So this is what you get instead. um, and so when I was thinking through change management for an organization as a whole, you could easily see where digital transformation fits in. And so I really like to define digital transformation as a subset of organizational behavioral change, which is what change management is as a whole. And so, I want to sort of stop there and see, like, what are some of the things where this is going to go wrong? Where does digital transformation go wrong in general? What have been your experiences seeing that the project was set up to fail?
The first thing that always comes to mind with digital transformation is like AI. It's where somebody said we have to do it, just to check the box, just to look cool, just to justify why we have to keep paying McKinsey to sit in our offices. Somebody comes up with something that says, yeah, we've got to do this thing because it's the cool thing to do. And it's like everything. That is pretty much a guaranteed route to failure, because there's to the left hand box in it, there's no purpose behind it, and there's no purpose. It's going to fail.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I like that you've put guardrails around it and said that the digital transformation happens in the platform, because one of the things we see all the time as a failure is when people try to digitize a process or reporting and revenue, performance stuff, where they just buy some tool and bolt it on without any consideration about where it's going to fit into the whole platform. And so I really like to see that there, because yeah, you can't be just kind of slapping up, automating all this stuff without any kind of plan as to where it's going to go, 5 years. Well, maybe you can't look 5 years ahead, but at least look at your existing tool stack and figure out how is this stuff going to integrate into the platform we've already got, because otherwise you just, you get silos and fiefdoms and all kinds of headaches down the line. Or worse yet, you get problems that affect departments that outside of your own scope. You make problems for accounting, you actually make life worse elsewhere in the organization.
Yeah. Because part of what digital transformation is trying to accomplish is a culture shift, the fact that it doesn't overtly include the teams, the people, the long term, sort of like, think about it like the spider web of like how many other people, the customers, like the accounting team, the finance team, the IT support team, like, are those people even taken into consideration when you purchase a license to, a brand new platform that you're trying to band-aid, an issue with, without sort of really thinking through what are those widespread impacts of bringing on a new tool, or even something very simple like, and this is sort of the rant that I've been on, but let's say that you're a new business and you've been mostly brick and mortar and you're trying to, build a digital presence. It may be a small business, but there are still implications of, setting up a Facebook page, setting up a simple, website. Who's going to maintain the website? Who's going to update the social media every day? Those kinds of things, and thinking through like, going digital actually includes a lot more people than just you. You just may not realize it or have the resources to do it. So when I start thinking through, when I was sort of describing this process within the process, what I first did was I nestled digital transformation into the full change management process. But then what I started to do was flip it around and then nestled change management process into every single one of these buckets. So sort of walking through the scenario as if an organization were looking to, digitally transform. Well, we want to know the purpose is, what are the goals? Who are the people? What are the efficiencies? And how will we actually do the thing? What are the platforms? And then how do we measure it? So sort of at a high level playing out the scenario of an organization undergoing some digital transformation, introducing new stuff, basically. And so I won't sort of spend a lot of time on these other ones, but basically what you do is you take change management, and then it's sort of the process within a process within a process. So if you start with the business goals, you then apply the same change management process to that first goal. So purpose, but then you have, what's the purpose? Who are the people? The process, the platform, and the performance. And so as you are outlining your business goal of why you're doing change management, you still have to understand, like, who are the people who are making the decisions that these are the business goals? What other factors do we need to include? Do we have, you know, stakeholders and board members who need to weigh in on what the actual goals are? Are we setting the goals ourselves? Do our customers dictate some of this because, they have bought into, you know, this like a farm share or something, so they have a stake in it? How do we get to understanding what those goals are? What platforms are we using to capture the information that tells us, what the goals are? And then how do we know that we've met the goal? And so you can see, you can sort of like keep breaking it out, you know, a framework within a framework within a framework of, you can include the 5 Ps into each one of these little bullets, which again would get very, cuckoo bananas on a screen, but hopefully I'm explaining it correctly. Chris, you look like you're sort of like mulling over.
Oh, not anything specific to this. Just it's a fractal. So if you're familiar with fractals, they are essentially every piece is has its own piece of the same thing replicated, infinitely downward inside of it.
That's exactly it. And so I would venture a guess, and John, you talk with a lot of, prospects and you do a lot of interviews. Have you found that anyone, like, as they're setting up their business goals or as they're thinking through, like, what do we want to do next year? Are they really taking the time to plan it out to this extent, or are they just like, let's increase by 10%?
Oh yeah, they're always missing this whole mix. Everybody looks at platform, maybe at process. They're driven by performance, but people and purpose sometimes are just totally missed. Just not in it whatsoever. I can't. There've been so many times where we've seen a team buy some kind of software, and literally none of the users even know that it's coming. Like, they just get notified that, like, okay, next week you're gonna log into crm.com, and that's how your life is going to run every day. And better orgs that actually look at people would have had those people involved in the cycle months ago. So yeah, having this kind of structure where you're applying some rigor to doing these projects just makes a huge difference. Because yeah, again, I've seen so many failures. With every crashed project, you go and there'll be at least 1 to 4 of these missing.
Well, and I think, you just said something really interesting. You used the term rigor. And so it's that rigor, it's the, almost like militant, you have to do it this way, that people are like, I don't have time to go through all of these steps. I don't have time to do business requirements gathering. I just need to set the thing up yesterday. And so I can't follow anything that's rigor. And so what's interesting is that this is actually meant to be fairly agile. And so I don't know that it comes across that way in the visual, but the way that I approach change management is that it's meant to be incremental. And so you get those small wins over time so that you can start to adjust the plan. So let me just kind of scoot ahead to the change management sections, because again, you can apply this to your people. So, what are you trying to do with people? You're trying to retain them. What do you need to do? A feedback loop. How do you, measure it? What's the success rate? So you can apply the same 5 Ps to every single one of these things. Same thing with efficiencies. So here we're at digital transformation, because that's really sort of the crux of what we're talking about. So why do people want to undergo this transformation of digital? And so, from what we can tell, some of it is innovation, some of it is, to keep up with their competitors, some of it is, they don't really know why. They're just sort of like introducing a new tool because somebody said, hey, there's this new tool out there. And they're like, ooh, shiny object. And so, to the points that you both have been making, it's a lot more involved in that. And you can very easily do it wrong because you're not thinking through. And so when I was thinking of applying the same 5P change management, these are some of the high level buckets that I came up with. What have I missed from your experience?
It's not that you missed anything. I have a question, which is
Yeah.
internality versus externality. Particularly in the purpose section there, those are listed very clearly as internal purposes, right? We want to beat our competitors, we want to innovate and stuff. But the biggest digital transformations happened over the last 18 months for a lot of businesses because of an external event, namely the pandemic, saying, guess what? You can't have customers in your restaurant. Like, you must
Hmm.
do something else. And so it's an external event. So does this structure change, or how, like, I guess the other question is, how does a company, particularly like you were saying, when you were starting off talking about some of the smaller businesses, how does a company approach digital transformation when it's being forced upon you by the outside, and you have no control over a lot of the major factors, other than you either stay in business, you adapt and stay in business, or you don't?
Well, I would say that the structure, the approach doesn't change, but the answers to the questions themselves do change. And you actually pointed out something really, really key that I was hoping would sort of like come up in conversation, is that when companies are going through digital transformation or any kind of a change, they tend to forget about the customer. They focus only on themselves and how will this affect me? How do I feel? What does my job entail? What do I now have to be responsible for? Why am I not included in this thing? But they don't really think about including their customers or what's going to happen to them. And so you're absolutely right. The example of the pandemic completely just sort of rocked the way that people had to be doing business. And so if you didn't currently have an online presence, if you were a brick and mortar, you had to scramble to figure out, well, what is everybody else doing? What's the best way to meet my customers where they are? I don't know where my customers are. And so before introducing some sort of a digital presence that you may not have currently have, you first need to do that research. So you're not even ready for this step. You need to figure out, where do my customers hang out? Who are my customers? Do I have that information? Does it all live in a spreadsheet or post-it notes, or do I actually have a CRM where I can mine that information to say this is the general profile or profiles of my customers, and I have a better sense of where I might be able to reach them? And then you can start to figure out, okay, the purpose of doing this digital transformation is to reach my customers where they are online, versus I just want to be competitive to Joe down the street because Joe has a website. I don't have a website, so I should have a website. And so it's a very interesting way to think about it. And you're right, it's absolutely a missed opportunity because companies tend to forget that their customer at the end of the day is who they're doing this for, not necessarily just themselves.
So there's a new billion-dollar industry for us, Katie: customer-centric digital transformation.
I don't, I mean, I got a little bit of a headache when you said that.
No, but it's true, because one of the things that we've constantly had disagreements with certain clients is looking at a major strategic initiative and saying, Did you talk to any customers at all? Or even more important, you are not set up to be where the customer is. We were looking at a product earlier today that really the audience for that product really is people age 60 and up, right? And this is in an industry where all of the growth and all of the customers are 30 and under, right? And so you have just a massive disconnect that a digital transformation won't help them because they're calibrated on the wrong audience. So how does that fit in here? Where you could is that more of a even higher level strategic thing where you even say like, look, your digital transformation is a waste of your time. You need fundamental change management to say your audience is literally dying.
Yep. That's absolutely it. And the hope is that by asking people to step back and go through these steps, like these 5 Ps, they would start to uncover like, "Oh, maybe this isn't something that is actually the right thing." That's sort of like the idealistic way to look at it, like, "Oh, they will learn a lot by going through this process." The answer is they won't. They're still gonna do whatever it is they wanna do. But ideally, before you even sort of go into any kind of a change management project, big or small, you've done some research to know that this is the thing that we want to do because this is how we're going to measure it. And so, thinking about, that performance step, if you are not measuring the right thing, you're not going to get great performance. And so, Chris, to your point, if they are focusing only internally, yeah, great. Everybody is now using Facebook internally. But then when you step back out more to that bigger picture where digital transformation fit into the overall organization, well, what happened? Did we get more revenue? Do we get more customers? And then you'll start to see where it fell apart. And so that's why I was really thinking through it's a process within a process within a process. Or what did you call it, Chris? A fractal?
A fractal.
Yeah.
Walk me through a change, managing a change that you don't want to make. So I'll give you a real concrete example, Katie. A lot of people, over 1 billion people now, are using TikTok on a regular and frequent basis, right? It is where a lot of new memes are coming from, a lot of culture is coming out of. Katie, what is our change management? What is our transformation so that we can become relevant to marketers who are interested in using TikTok? How do we change ourselves to adapt to that, given that as my peers in my Discord server say I'm one of the olds. TikTok is not for you. I'm like, please, I'm here in Discord.
Well, even though I'm younger than you, I'm older than you spiritually because I don't have a TikTok. And I still, for the life of me, cannot spell it the way they want to spell it. I have to add a C in there, but that's beside the point. So honestly, where we would start is the purpose. Like, what is the purpose of setting up a TikTok for Trust Insights and really digging into understanding if we do this thing, what is going to be the benefit to the company? So if you're going through this exercise and you're saying, well, the purpose of setting up TikTok is to stay relevant, I'm going to go ahead and slap you on the wrist and say, that's not a good enough reason to do something. Like, what is the benefit to your business? Because it always sort of needs to tie back to the so what? Why are we doing this thing? Like, if the answer is to drive awareness to the personalities of Trust Insights so that people can get to know us better on, for our own personal brands, that's a better reason than just because we want to stay relevant, because then it's not the company as a whole. We're not creating Trust Insights TikToks. We're creating Chris Penn TikToks, John Wall TikToks, and Katie Robert TikToks. So that to me is a different application of it. And so we really need to get to dig into the purpose. And so, this is off the cuff. I don't know if this is the right or the wrong answer, but I would say I don't know that TikTok is where Trust Insights as a company needs to be, but I could be wrong. I have a lot more research that I need to do before I can definitively say that. And so that's where I need to start is understanding the true purpose of why we need to make that change. So then if you play out the scenario of let's say that we find out that all of our customers, our ideal customers, are on TikTok, they're users of TikTok, then that's where we're going to get all of our new leads from. Okay, great. We need to start to set up that TikTok account. So our purpose of setting it up is we need to set it up so that um, we can get more quality leads of people who want the services that we offer. So the people, well, who are the people who are running this account? Is it we're all running this account? Is just Chris running this account? Are we going to torture Katie and make her run this account? I mean, that's a great question. So who are the people? Do we need our, friendlies to, have guest cameos on the account? I don't know how it works. Maybe you can like link to other accounts and share other people's stuff. And
It's a lot
so
like Instagram.
Oh, okay. Well, that's helpful. And so it's like you need to figure out like who are the people who are involved. Do we need to maybe think about bringing on like a TikTok expert or a social expert to the team who can run this thing for us? And then what's the process? How often are we posting? How are we creating the content that goes onto TikTok? Um, how how do we extract anything from TikTok in terms of meaningful metrics? Platform, we assume it's TikTok, but can you just post directly to TikTok from your desktop, for example? Do you need to have something like an Agora Pulse that you can then link to and then post and then schedule? And so there's a lot of, it may be more tech than just the app on your phone. And if you have the app on your phone, can we all access the same account from each of our individual phones? And so thinking through those things. And then the performance is, so what? Did we get new leads from TikTok? Can we measure and attribute those leads from TikTok specifically? So that's me foaming at the mouth for like 5 minutes on TikTok.
No, that's good. I mean, from what I've seen, because I'm on there, a couple times a day, is that for marketers, our customers' greatest needs are very much like what you just said. What the heck are we supposed to do with this thing, right? Like, all these kids are on here, and it really isn't just kids anymore. It's not. It's a lot of different ages, but the perception is it's still just a kids thing. But so you have all these people, sound like Mr. Burns, or Grandpa Simpson. They're like, what are all these kids doing here? How do and with a billion users, you can't really ignore it anymore. And I see our purpose as a company as helping folks understand the data coming out of it so that they can make, to put the performance at the bottom here is helping them make data driven decisions with data about TikTok. Like, how do you know this thing? So we had a client a couple of weeks ago. No, it was last month. And last month's attribution reports, suddenly TikTok started showing up in their attribution reports. And we're like, what'd you do? And they're like, oh yeah, we got these, with this one influencer just, picked us up and started sharing our stuff. And we're like, that's cool. What are you going to do about it? They're like, we don't know how to use the thing. And so like, I feel like there's some data-driven decisions here. We've got the data, it's telling you to make a decision, but from a change management perspective, you're not ready to make that decision. So does that company just lose the opportunity because they're simply not ready for it?
Yeah, well, they have to. I think people get wrapped up in the, all the buzz for this, but when you boil it down, it is just a video channel, right? I mean, and the problem is you're handcuffed in that it's, 15 seconds, 60 seconds, or 3 minutes, which for us is like not even enough time to set up the problem. I mean, and now not to say that that's because we're too advanced or our products are too crazy. Maybe that's a blind spot for us. Like maybe we need to be doing more soundbite stuff and boiling stuff down into 15 minutes, 2 of somebody getting punched in the crotch, and then 12 of hey, if you had better analytics, you'd be able to do some cool stuff. Visit Trust Insights.
Not it.
Yeah, it's I mean, part of me is like, yeah, TikTok is just an open sewer. Like it's all a bunch of sound bites. It's garbage, but the crowd is there. And yeah, you already see, I don't know, I've been following some marketing TikToks, and it's a lot of it is like hey, let me tell you in 30 seconds how to, do these 5 SEO things. And I don't know, to me, I want to kill myself watching that. It's like, yeah, these are the 3 most topical, garbage tips ever. But, there are people out there that's their first time hearing those things. So if they watch that and then they click through to get more content, that's it. But yeah, I don't know. We're just, our culture is long form video. Like that's just who we are. But again, not to say that maybe we don't need to think about how to get in there. But yeah, that is hilarious. I could totally see clients like throwing some videos out there and being like, oh, wait, these caught on fire. What do we do? And they just have no idea. That's deer in the headlights still.
Well, and that goes back to, the crux of change management, which is that cultural change, that organizational behavioral change. And so, John, you and I are in a slightly different camp than Chris, because Chris tends to stay more up to date on the latest and greatest, whatever's out there in the internet. Whereas you and I are both like, well, if I can't create a 45-minute webinar, then what's the point? I can't describe the thing. Like, how do I break it down? Like, this is where the kids are. And so that's a cultural shift for us, is to start to rethink what where do we have a place in some of these new social media platforms? Do we have a place? Is it worth, testing it? What does that look like? What do we do? And that's that culture shift, which goes back to change management, which is how this digital transformation framework came about. Is it's using the change management framework to do some sort of a digital transformation. And in this scenario, it would be, does Trust Insights belong on TikTok? And so you run through all of these things, and then you come up with some sort of a proof of concept of, let me test it. Is it working? Okay, let me go back and readjust and see, did we get the right purpose? Did we measure the right things? Should we have, a third party running it for us versus ourselves, because we tend to deprioritize it with everything else. And so continually learning from, what we're doing and restarting that change management framework, that process over and over again.
One of the things I think digital transformation does really wrong too is where people lead off in this. Um, a lot of folks start on the platform, right? They start, here's the new cool technology. And it's interesting hearing all of us talking, in the example of TikTok and stuff. The first indicators of a need for change come from people. They come from listening to people. So, the difference between the three of us about why I know some of this stuff earlier is with the people we hang out with, right? So I spend a lot more time probably online than both of you do. And I spend time with a lot of very, very different people who are way outside our market of, B2B marketing professionals, which is typically who we hang out with, because they're usually our customers. In one of the Discord servers I'm in, the average age of the server is like 17, I think. So it's like super, super young kids. I've got a teenager upstairs of my own. And the people part is where all those things are coming from. You listen to people like, oh, like, what are you talking about? They're playing Gartic Phone or Among Us or Cards Against Humanity online. It's like, huh, what are all these things? Just poking your head and going, oh, that's interesting. Seeing people using stuff in ways it wasn't intended to be used, like how people curate Spotify playlists and stuff. It's funny. I hear people talking about how music discovery happens, and watching other people doing it, going, that's not at all what the marketing trades are saying is happening. Like that's not reality. So how do we help companies and customers and ourselves become more people-led, even in digital transformation?
So, you're absolutely right, Chris. Like, I don't think John and I spend nearly as much time, in those forums that you do, but that's just who you are. And to your point, you have a teenager at home. I don't have kids. And so I don't have that person, coming into my life every day saying, this is the new latest thing. Like, I am relying on myself and my group of friends who aren't marketers, but who are very similar to me, of like, none of us really use social media all that much. Um, and so, I tend to read a lot. And so sometimes I've learned some new things through reading. Not always, it's not always going to be as up to date as like real time internet chat rooms, forums. I don't know. Clearly, I'm not using them, because in my brain, I just brought up an AOL chat room. I think that was the last time I was in a chat room. So but what John and I need to do is maybe set aside, like, an hour a week on a Friday, and have you just sort of walk us through, here's all the stuff that I, experienced this week in the forums. Here's the stuff that I learned. Here's the stuff that could be interesting for, you guys to go research more on to see how it fits into what we're doing at Trust Insights. And so that way you are like, so John and I aren't necessarily changing our everyday habits, but we're changing the way that we think about some of this information because you are driving that culture and asking us to research more and get more involved. And so you're sort of acting as that filter of like all the other noise and just bringing sort of the stuff that we should explore a little bit more. And that's sort of how that culture shift starts, you know. And so that one, if you sort of play it out, the purpose is to get more up to date on what's happening online. The people, well, Chris would be sort of the main research lead, and John and I would be the research assistants in that scenario. The process is, you know, once a week, we sit down and say, what's new, what's different, what do we need to learn? Platform. Well, it's wherever you feel like getting your information from. It sounds like a lot of it is Discord, there might be some other places. And the performance, the measure of success is, did we as a whole, as a company, start to introduce new technology into what it is that we're doing to drive awareness, to drive leads, to service our clients?
And just boil it down to 60 seconds. There's your TikTok. We could do like TikTok for olds. That would be it.
Oh, John, we would be so good at it.
We
It
might
would
have
be
to
60
experiment
seconds
with
of
it.
you and I trying to find the record button.
Like, damn it, you kids and your sus. What is this sus?
Did I shut it off? Is it still recording? What does this do?
Dude, I think
I
we've
mean,
got it.
that would actually probably do astonishingly well, particularly if we all got like the Ted Lasso mustaches.
That's right.
Mustache.
Me especially.
Excellent.
I do want to bring up, so someone from LinkedIn had the comment, sort of going back to John, your comment about rigor. And this is exactly it. This is the issue with a lot of digital transformation, is the desire for shiny objects versus a resistance to rigor and transformation. Reminds me of the gimmicks and fad diets versus the pain of diet and exercise we all know actually works. It's absolutely true. And so using a process like the 5 Ps of change management, it sort of, it gets you out of that ability to do it as a fad diet. Like, it forces you into that, okay, let's find some consistency. Let's see if we can repeat this. Let's see if we can do it, you know, today and tomorrow and the following day. And if people have a good communication plan so that they understand what it is that's happening. One of the things that's not in here that needs to be called out a bit more is that communication plan. And so it's fine if you list out, you know, okay, Chris is going to start, you know, researching TikTok. And then Katie's going to start running the TikTok account. Well, I can just put that down on paper, but if I never actually have a conversation with Chris, or if Chris never tells me what we're doing, then this is already set up to fail. And so that communication is absolutely key to this whole thing. Is, it's fine to write it all out on paper and write the plan and start doing the thing. But if you don't tell people, if you don't set expectations, you're still set up to fail.
That's the fact. You're gonna fail.
You're going to fail.
It lands like a rock, though. It's so true, because yeah, that's like the $1 million quote from our LinkedIn guest. There is, there's so many times where we go in and everybody wants the shiny thing to see what's in there, and then after all the digging is done and you find out where the problems are, suddenly there's just never the willpower to actually go work on the problems or fix the things. Like, that's the greatest challenge that we face is, yeah, we can use these analytics to get down to the truth and what you need to do next, but now, you know, do you have the drive to go do the next thing? You know, are you going to change the campaigns you're doing? You know, I can talk all day about doing a TikTok video, but am I going to crank one out by the end of the day Friday? That's a tough call.
And fundamentally, it always has to come back to the people. And so if the people are the problem, nothing's going to change. And we talked about that a few weeks ago when we were talking about Facebook, right? You know, because of the ownership structure, Facebook will never change because the leadership, which is the problem, can't be changed out. And so, you know, it comes down to the people. When you have a consultant, you know, coming and saying you need to do digital transformation to modernize your organization, and the people don't change, then you've got expensive new toys with the same old people.
That's exactly it. And that's why at least from where I sit, digital transformation is nestled under change management as a whole, because if you want to make a culture shift with digital transformation, what you're talking about is an organizational change. And an organizational change needs to be done in a methodical way, in a thoughtful way. You can't just say, all right, we're going to use this thing now. Nobody's going to want to do it. Everyone's going to resist and go, why? How does that affect me? Where do I fit into this thing? Do I even get to use this thing? Why can't I play with the shiny new toy? And it's just like you can go ahead and try. I was going to say you can't do it, but the answer is you can do it that way. You absolutely can do it that way. I guarantee you're going to fail if you try to do it that way.
So the answer is to eliminate people.
Again, I feel like you've not listened to a single thing I've said in the past 40 minutes, Chris. I've quoted this to you before.
You're like, I'm driving this train. Where did the passenger go?
So another question that we have from LinkedIn is part of that inevitable failure the perception of the magical transformation? Yes. When we should be talking about an incremental evolution. That's exactly it. And so, part of why I'm saying that, change management needs to be agile versus this sort of waterfall static rigor is you can't change too much at once and have people feel comfortable. Think about it from your own personal life. We've used the example of exercise. We've used the example of, any other thing. If you suddenly wake up tomorrow and start to try to run a marathon and you've never run before in your life, it's going to suck. It's not going to go very well. But if you incrementally do like a couch to 5K, or, okay, maybe I will do 10 minutes of cardio today. Maybe I'll do 15 minutes of cardio tomorrow, and start to incrementally build upon what you're doing, that change becomes easier to adopt. And the same thing is true of a digital transformation. If you say, okay, we've never been online before, we've never had a digital footprint, tomorrow we're introducing 20 new tools that you guys have to just go ahead and figure out and use because we need to be digital, that's not going to work. So you need to start with, okay, what is the most critical thing that we need to start with? All right, let's build a website. What are the elements of building a website? Let's start there. And then you can build out like, okay, now that we have a website, maybe we should have an Instagram account. Okay, now that we have an Instagram account, maybe we want a newsletter. If we want a newsletter, maybe we should have some sort of a marketing automation system. And so building upon it, and that whole plan can be written out. But my suggestion is you don't try to do it all at once. You build the thing, you let it sit, sort of see how it's doing and adjust that before you move on to the next thing. And that's the idea of that agile methodology built into this more rigorous process. Okay, so what? I'll ask. I'm always asked this
what
question.
now? It's you got to go do the thing.
Yeah.
Now you got to go do it.
Time to go crank out some TikTok vids.
Well, so John, we definitely gave you a to-do. So you're cranking out TikTok videos this week. So that's the tradition of giving John a to-do list. But I would say the so what is if you're an organization that is looking to try to undergo a digital transformation, I would say you need to stop and think is like, why are we doing this? Who's affected by this? How are we going to do this? How are we going to measure success? Which,
what is the purpose?
Unsurprisingly, is those 5 Ps of change management. And so if that's the so what, if you can't answer these 5 questions about a project that you're working on, I need you to stop what you're doing and just sort of take a step back and, see if you can try to get the answers to these questions.
All right, we'll come and eliminate you.
You heard it here first.
All right. Well, as always, folks, if you have questions, you can hop on over to our Slack group, Analytics for Marketers. We'll have a bit about that in just a second. Any final thoughts, Katie, in terms of what people should be doing? Is it really just do that first stop and consider what you're doing?
Yeah, it's you have to stop, you have to collaborate, and you have to listen. Ice is back with a brand new edition.
With that, we out.
Oh, God. Thanks for watching today. Be sure to subscribe to our show wherever you're watching it. For more resources and to learn more, check out the Trust Insights podcast at trustinsights.ai/TI podcast and our weekly email newsletter at trustinsights.ai/newsletter. Got questions about what you saw in today's episode? Join our free Analytics for Marketers Slack group at trustinsights.ai/analytics for marketers. See you next time.